This is the World Health Organization website, where if you went, you want to know what does the WHO have to say, you find this wonderful picture of a toddler being handed a cell phone. And it says under the section, are there any health effects? A large number of studies have been performed over the last 2 decades to assess whether mobile phones pose a potential health risk. To date, no adverse health effects have been established as being caused by mobile phone use. This statement on the WHO website is used the world over by cell tower companies, by cell phone companies. Whenever anyone says there might be a problem, this is used. Well, how did this web page even get here? Who made that determination? What studies would they say a large number of studies? What are they talking about? Well, here's the fact that most of us aren't aware of, and that is that the WHO EMF project was started by Michael Repiccioli. I'm going to share with you a short video of him talking, so pardon the better image of him, who was funneling money from telecom through a hospital. He started both the World Health Organization EMF project, and he started the International Commission for Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection, a big and fancy name, and it's called ICNIRP for short, the acronym. And here he is later, he's a known industry consultant now. There has been no review of wireless radio frequency radiation by the World Health Organization EMF project since 1993. And it states it on their website. And when we wrote them and we said, when has the WHO EMF project reviewed research, they're not answering. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Now, there's an important distinction everyone needs to know, and let me just stop this for a second. There is a difference between the World Health Organization EMF project and the World Health Organization International Agency for the Research on Cancer. These are two separate entities. One was started by Michael Repiccioli. The EMF project, there's no oversight, there's no accountability. There is, we don't even know, where did that statement come from? The International Agency for the Research on Cancer is a separate entity, and they determined that wireless and cell phones were a class 2B possible carcinogen almost a decade ago now. And now many of those scientists are stating that it is a human carcinogen. So let me just share with you Michael Repiccioli talking about children and cell phones. And this is on the GSMA, that is one of the international cell phone company, all the conglomerate of companies get together and they have these large organizations that put forward information on cell phones.
But we couldn't find anything that above the age of 2, the development process seemed to have concluded to the point that radio frequency fields wouldn't cause any adverse consequence after that age.
It sounds from the conclusions of that group like parents shouldn't be worried about allowing their children to use mobile phones.
Let's face it, mobile phones are here to stay. Children love mobile phones. It's one of their best means of communication. It's also a safety issue. Children should be encouraged to use technology. Otherwise, they'll be left while other children are using the technology, and the jobs are going to go to children who knew the technology very well at a young age. So certainly from the health viewpoint, there is no concern that we've seen this far to indicate that parents need to be worried about children's use of mobile phones.
And you can go to the work of Dr. Leonard Hardell. He has a publication called the World Health Organization, A Hard Nut to Crack, where he details the industry ties and the conflicts of interest related to Michael Repiccioli, his long history, as well as these groups that we look to as being the authorities on the matter, and how there is actually a lack of a science base and independent review or any oversight for these groups which are claiming safety. This is another imaging study that looked at the cell phone radiation exposure from a wireless tablet into the brain of a child. This was modeling that electrical engineers did regarding the iPad, just a few inches from the face, which is how children use them. And the colors represent the intensity of the exposure into the brains of children. And in this particular, it was a 6-year-old child. They take different aged models and then look at what the exposure might be for an adult, for a 6-year-old, for a 10-year-old, for a 12-year-old. So this radiation is going into their brains. And here is a commercial showing kids using virtual reality, where you hold the phone right up to your eyes. So children have developing brains and they have developing eyes. This radiation is going into their brains, into their eyes. And here is a study, another imaging study. This is representing the phone that looked at virtual reality positions. And this is an adult, this is one looking at a child, and you can see the highest exposures and how deeply that level of exposure goes into the brain. There's research showing, as I talked about, impacts to the male reproductive system. This is images looking at testes development. This is imaging that was done looking at a phone in the pocket and the intensities that would come from the phone radiation, both into the body and also looking at how it propagated through space. This is imaging that's done looking at a pregnant woman and the fetus, and at what are the exposures that the baby would receive. And it found higher levels into the body when the fetus, when you are many more months along, of course, because the baby's head is more on the surface, and yet women are resting cell phones against their abdomen like a shelf. But the reason I have this particular picture is that it says CTIA. This is the United States lobbying group for the wireless industry. This is a video that they have online entitled "The Focus on Education, Health, and Safety." And they have a smiling pregnant woman with the phone right above her abdomen. Now, importantly, and you can please learn more at Environmental Health Trust. There's so much, we have videos on children, scientific lectures on impacts to pregnant women. We have Dr. Hugh Taylor speaking about his research on memory. Many of the scientists who I'm talking about have their lectures, very technical lectures online at Environmental Health Trust. Even at lower levels, so even if you're not 9 months pregnant or 8 months pregnant, there are exposures that will be received in your body and in your developing pregnancy. Now, the American Academy of Pediatrics has for years been writing to the US government calling for changes to the exposure limits that we have. And after the National Toxicology Program study, they came out with tips on how to reduce your cell phone radiation exposure, cell phone safety tips for families. They don't come down on one side. They don't say that it's proven or not proven. They say, here's how you can reduce exposure. And like many organizations, they recommend reducing exposure because, and around the world, because it makes sense, especially for children. The Vienna Medical Association, the Cyprus National Committee on Environmental Children's Health, the Cyprus Medical Association, Athens Medical Association, the Italian Society for Preventative and Social Pediatrics. I can talk on and on about these, the French Agency for Food, Environmental, and Occupational Health and Safety, ANSES. The Council of Europe has a resolution, Resolution 1815, recommending reducing exposure to children and reducing exposure in schools and communities. The Connecticut Department of Public Health says, when it comes to cell phones, it's wise. They use the word wise to reduce exposure.